Morning, folks. This is Trevor from History on the Move, and I'm coming to you today. This is Sunday, July 20th, and a bit of a solemn day here. So I just learned from Steve Wickersham, the former CMO of 614 and Freedom Train AFT1 behind me, that Ross E. Rowland Jr. died yesterday morning. So Saturday, July 19th in the morning, Ross E. Roland died. Passed on from this life to the next one. So I've been wanting to do this video for a while. I was kind of holding out because I did not expect, nobody expected Ross to leave us so soon. But I've been wanting to do a walk around and around the American Freedom Train, kind of show you a little bit of the progress that's been going on here with the restoration. So really sad though that Ross has passed on. I met Ross for the first time. I didn't even know who he was, and I'll flash a few photos of that up on the screen. But I went up to the New Hope in Ivyland in December of 2019, paid the extra money for the cab ride. Didn't know that the larger than life in persona and height gentleman that was running the locomotive was Ross Roland of Freedom Train, Chesty Steam Special, Chesty Safety Express, etc., fame. And I understand that Ross can be a controversial figure. But we're not here to talk about that because this is not a philosophy channel. We don't talk about that kind of stuff. But I think it's important to point out that humans, myself included, we are a pile of literally gray matter, and our lives are gray. And it's not always just black and white, and things are not very crisp and they're not clear. And I think it's important for us to point out here that every person, living, dead, or not born, is going to be flawed in some way, and they're going to have their shortcomings, and other people are going to perceive that in whichever way they choose to see fit. But again, this channel focuses on history on the move. But more importantly, we're going to talk about facts and things that shape, especially this guy behind us, and the profound legacy that Ross E. Roland Jr. had and has and will have on railroad preservation, especially steam locomotives. So let's get into that. If I'm going to pick a philosopher, we're going to go with somebody a bit more positive. We're not going to go with Schopenhauer here because he was a pessimist. But we're going to kind of move forward in a positive light and talk about some good stuff that Ross did for railroad preservation. All right, so I've moved to the side of the Freedom Train here because if you've never been to Baltimore before, especially during June, July, and August, it is flipping hot. And there's this wonderful thing that we have called humidity. Welcome to the Chesapeake Bay area. So Ross E. Roland was born in 1940 in Albany, New York. And 5 years later, he would move, 1945, his family would move to Cranford, New Jersey. And New Jersey would eventually just become home for Ross for a multitude of reasons. But at the age of 17, he got involved in the New York Stock Exchange, trading precious commodities, you know, copper, steel, iron, whatever else, you know, gold, all that good stuff, precious metals. So then in the 50s and 60s, he was volunteering or getting paid, not sure which one, he began working, we'll say, at the New Jersey Museum of Transportation, as well as the Black River and Western. And if you've never been to New Jersey, I'm not a New Jersey hater, so please go and visit it, especially the Black River and Western Railroad, because they have a cute little 280, number 60, former Great Western, I believe. You should really go and ride. That's a fun one. So anyway, so he began to volunteer there, and eventually kind of got bored, kind of got tired of that, and he said, I really want to go do the high iron. I really want to get out and, you know, do mainline stuff. And so he eventually started in 1966 the High Iron Company, and this would become his first endeavor into mainline excursions. He grabbed 2 Canadian Pacific engines. I don't remember the numbers, but if you remember what they are, shove them down in the comments below. And then eventually he would get the nickel plate 759 and run that. And that is now at Steamtown, so you can go still see that. That's in the Roundhouse. And it wasn't until much later, a couple years later, obviously, he did the American Freedom Train, 75, 76. And then after that, and that's with the T1, the Reading T1 behind me, he would eventually get involved in the Chessie Steam Special. And again, he ran 2101 behind me here, American Freedom Train, but it was dressed up in Chessie livery. And unfortunately, the Roundhouse Fire of 1979 in Kentucky would condemn this thing, and that was the end of that. And then he would get 614, Chesapeake and Ohio 614, a J class 484, and he would run that. And so, and that was involved in so many epic things. You know, he did some pretty amazing stuff again for railroad preservation, preservation of steam, etc. And again, as I found with him, he kind of ended his steam career, if you will, at the New Hope in Ivyland, running their little 280 up there, number 40. Always around Christmas time, ever the festive person. Ross was, for me, my interactions with him, a gentleman. He was a very warm, compassionate person, and he understood boundaries. At least, again, in my interactions with him. So, but let's take a look at AFT1 here and kind of get an idea of the progress. All right, so we are back in front of the Freedom Train here, AFT1, and as you can see, most of the front decorative stuff is gone. So the number boards up here, they're gone. They're in safekeeping. Headlights gone. The other number board here is gone. And a few of the other odds and ends here, all the marker lights on either side here. I actually took those down along with my brother when we were shooting the American Freedom Train, the history of the American Freedom Train video. You should check that out. I'll drop a link in the description. You should check that out. That's a good one. That's, I would argue, pretty definitive. I did some pretty deep dives into that. Even called Roland himself, and got some info from Steve Wickersham before we put all that together. And so anyway, so yeah, so those are away for safekeeping. I took those down myself, put them in the museum, in the restoration shop here for safekeeping. And the rest of this has been done by FMW Solutions. So you can see all the boiler jacketing here is gone, has been taken down. That's actually, there's bits and bobs of it here. There's a sand dome with some other good stuff. I threw it in the mix down here. Again, I am not a steam locomotive aficionado, never run one, never worked on one. So what you see is what you get. There is the front end throttle though. That's kind of cool. Did not know how this worked until I read Robert Gottschall's book about the T1. Check that out. That's a really, really good read and very definitive. So yeah, front end throttle, the linkage would come from the cab up to here, and then actuate the valves. And let's see, what else do we have here? They've left the wheels as well. I'm sure this will get a good sandblasting. Actually, I know it will, because it's going to go into the paint booth here on track 3, or sorry, 4. Track 4 is on the other side here. We can't see it. Here's the boiler jacketing is gone here. There's the turret. All that's been taken down. And so we just, you know, it is bearing itself to us here. It's pretty much all we can really surmise from this. The rest of this will just get a really good sandblasting. I don't know if they're going to replace any of the missing parts. Obviously, this thing has been picked over throughout the years. But one thing I do know for sure is they did separate it. So obviously you can see here, it is no mas. But something interesting I learned after a phone call with Steve Wickersham was the stoker auger was actually taken from this one. And I might get this wrong, but I'm going to try to remember this to the best of my ability here. But after the Roundhouse fire, the 2101's stoker auger was taken off and donated to 2100 when it was still coal burning. And then eventually, you know, when it was moved to, I'm not sure if it was Canada when it went up there or somewhere else, but it was converted to oil, and that stoker disappeared. So it's probably laying somewhere in a yard, who knows. But yeah, so that's the story behind why there is no auger in here. It's kind of cool because it gives us a good look at the stoker itself. Again, here's like a massive U-joint that connects over to here, because there's the stoker motor itself, standard stoker company, and tube. And again, so that U-joint would connect with this one, which would then spin. That's of course seized, but that would spin the shaft, some gearing in there, and then get my finger to work. That square drive over there would be where the auger was connected. So that's kind of cool. Are they going to put the stoker back in, the auger? No. I'm sure that question will arise, but no, they will not. It'll just be probably covered over. Definitely needs some metal work. If you look inside, look at the flooring of it, and it definitely needs some metal work. But let's go inside the cab and get a good look. All right, I am in the cab of AFT1, so let's get a good look here. So the back head here has been abated. So all that fun white stuff is gone. Again, no auger. And from what I can see, there's also no plate. You know, so as the coal comes out, goes like that, and then there's jets that go into the stoker plate, or whatever it's called, and then it goes out into the, of course I'm way oversimplifying that, but so yeah, that is missing. Some reason I believe I heard the story that it went up to Reading and Northern, and they used it, or they used it as a template to have another one cast. Again, don't quote me on that, not 100% sure, but that's why it's a story. All right, so I'm not gonna, there was a seat here, I believe FMW took it out and put it for safekeeping, but we're not gonna sit there. Why? Because that's Ross's seat. So you got your train brake, got your independent brake, so works the locomotive, applies brakes to the rest of the train. Let's see, you got your power reverse, throttle. Of course the ratcheting mechanism doesn't work, but bits and bobs were probably taken off that as well. Let's see. There's the turret manifold there, the master valves, as they have them labeled, but and on the fireman's side, this is where Steve Wickersham would have sat for some of the journeys, I'm sure, and he would have probably sat over there as well. But yeah, this hopefully, fingers crossed, will be a pretty prolific restoration. It's going to take some time, you know, as history lovers, as rail fans, we cannot expect things to just happen like that. So we have to wait, and waiting is the hardest part. So I think we'll end the video here. There's not really much else to see. I mean, we'll give you a shot of the tender. Again, there's not much to really look at there. All that'll get blasted, you know, sandblasted, or media blasted of some sort, and then repainted. So this video was more to give people an update as to what's going on, and the timing of it was kind of poopy because, you know, Ross is no longer with us, and again, love him, like him, dislike him, whatever you may choose to do. I will also, I refuse to edit people's, I refuse to delete people's comments. You're allowed to have your own voice. That's why we have the First Amendment. So, you know, speak your mind in the comment section. I look at it as you have to separate, I think it was Seinfeld that said this, you have to separate the person from the body of work, right? And I think Seinfeld understands humans are complicated. So in this case, the prolificness of what Ross E. Roland Jr. did for steam preservation and railroad history and railroad preservation is beyond compare. Nobody could have pulled off the Golden Spike Centennial. Nobody else could have pulled off the American Freedom Train, the Chesty Steam Special, the Chesty Safety Express, and all the test runs that he did with 614. Nobody else that I'm aware of, obviously they didn't because they would have done it, pulled off this huge endeavor. And that's what we have to remember about Ross. So hopefully he has clear signals ahead of him. Ross, this video is for you.
Looking forward, staring into space, taking inventory, what can I replace? Heaven help me if I ever feel alone, always surrounded by a million telephones. Every little person I know gets down from time to time, but trust, it's gotta come around. Different story. When I was young, I was afraid, but everything I thought that I could never change. Now I'm a father and I'm flat out fucking scared. How we treat this world as if our kids ain't there. Every little person I know is guilty, him and her and you, especially me. That's what it seems. And like I sang before, I don't know what it means. It took so much to get here just to turn around. And what we leave behind should never keep us down. Every little person I know is guilty, him and her and you, especially me. Especially me.